All right, time to
So
call in, guys.
what up, Zip?
That was quick. I was not expecting to get dragged in
Yo,
right away. What's up, Pisco? How you doing?
good man. How can I help you?
Um, I don't know. I just kind of joined. I didn't expect to be dragged in immediately. I hadn't thought of exactly what I wanted to say, but
What is the vape pen? No, what the fuck?
I don't know. I wasn't listening the whole time. I think I just caught the last caller. I don't know what all you've circled the drain on this
Yeah, do you
Destiny
yeah.
Hassan topic.
So
You
you
know?
agree that I'm not, clout farming for the left, right?
Not necessarily. I don't think so.
No.
You don't think I am, or you don't agree with my claim?
Um, what yeah, be more specific.
The problem is that so far none of the callers have I don't know, maybe one will appear later, but none of the callers have talked about how the question in of itself is unfair. It is unfair and it doesn't move the conversation forward. All right, that is the like in my opinion, that is the most important question. Is like, how fair do you think posing that question is? What do you think that question will help you answer? Do you think that any answer from that question will help you? What do you think that would demonstrate, right? So it's like, again, it's okay for you to ask questions. Anyone can ask questions. But it's like, what do you seek to gain out of this, right?
With your claim. What
Do
what are
you
your
think that
aspects?
I am taking on positions to bad faith appeal to lefties and to
No,
do
I
this?
don't think so.
Okay, cool. Do you think that
I think the stronger of that argument would be that you are being
Also, the
too
hindsight indie
charitable
part.
to leftists who should not be appealed to.
Okay, can you
That
explain?
would be
Can
the
you give me
stronger argument that
one?
most
Can you
people
give me
would.
one example where I'm being too charitable to left wingers that I should not be?
Well, an example that the last caller was saying was the Hassan detainment and whatever stuff. Um,
Do you agree that
in
Destiny agrees on the
general,
factual component? The factual component that the most likely scenario is that Hassan was revoked global entry because of his speech. You agree that he said that?
yeah, I don't disagree that
Okay.
he said that.
So on the
However,
factual stuff,
there's
you think that he is also giving far too much charity to Hassan?
Sure.
no, because I don't think that's the disagreement between you and Destiny. You know that, right?
Okay, so
Because as you say, you both agree that it's most likely he got.
Okay, so
Oh,
then
no,
the disagreement's on the
Drew.
merits. You think I'm being too charitable to Hassan in that, even though Destiny and I agree factually what the most probable scenario is,
What do you think the disagreement between you and Destiny is on that point?
I think it's on how to interpret that. Whether
Correct.
that's good or
What?
bad. But that isn't a point of Hassan derangement. That's just a point about whether you think that this example is problematic viewpoint discrimination. And I take a different view on that.
Correct.
So I'm not giving charity to the left wing at all. I'm just standing on business with respect to liberty. Thank you, Josiah.
That could be it.
Yeah, so like it's people paint that as you're being too charitable to Hassan because you believe Hassan. That's what they typically mean. Is like, how can you believe this
Josiah.
liar? How can you believe this? But if we agree that factually the most likely
Bro, Josiah has been fucking oiling all the live and learn creators. I don't know if he's oiling them equally, but he is oiling them, okay? Larger content creator than all of them and oiling them.
scenario is something
Jesus.
Hassan
He's literally building his fucking harem of like political prostitutes.
said led to his revocation
Shit
of
is
global entry, which
wild,
led to his detainment. Then,
trying to
like,
keep
all
them
we're
together?
disagreeing
I
is how to
agree.
interpret
I
that.
agree.
And I'm gonna just
I think
Well,
so too.
the
I'm just gonna-
disagreement would be
yeah.
that it's possible that the things Hassan said would merit.
It would make Josiah
Global
look
entry
bad in
being
front of his
revoked.
audience too,
That's the
or
argument.
live and learn
but
people apart,
every
I think.
example that they give, for example, what he said about Rick Scott, comments about the Houthis, the quote unquote evidence of material support, none of those cut the bill. And so I go through each of those examples. I'm not like avoiding those examples
No,
about
not
the
groomers,
worst,
Jesus.
like the worst, most problematic thing that Hassan says. I take that on and I say, yeah, even then you can't do viewpoint discrimination. Even then, so that's not interpreting things to be charitable
He was
to the
very-
left.
it's just how
That's
it's
just I have a view of the
cool, I
First Amendment and
guess.
viewpoint discrimination.
I
That's
have
substantive.
a lot of
and I would
criticism
say
for
that
him,
also
though.
of people on the right wing. If you were to ban Nick Fuentes from air travel, as he accuses the government of doing on the basis of his speech and things he said, then I would have a problem with that as well. That's
Sure, that was
but
just
that's not like a
one thing
lefty
off the top of my head,
but that's
just
not a
'cause it
lefty
was in
charity
my head
thing,
from the
right?
last caller.
That's
But
just
like
a,
the charity thing, you could also say the whole Hutch disagreement, live and learn thing could be another example of that.
but again, that's not
Disagreement
me.
is,
But that's
somewhat
not
about,
lefty,
like,
right?
You know,
That's
going to
not
left people.
That's not lefty, right? Because that's not ideological, correct? The question about whether or not Biden should have signaled more optically, whether or not he should have done that or done other kind of maneuvers publicly for his own agenda. You would agree that's not ideological?
It could be.
But is it? Is the debate that we actually had with Hutch between me and Hutch, is that ideological?
It depends in what sense you mean ideological.
By ideological, I mean related to like political theory or best political, in terms of the substance of the political outcome as opposed to the strategy to achieve that outcome. Is there
Sure,
a
but
difference?
you agree in that debate. The difference is like you're taking the more left position versus.
Sorry, I don't. So I don't know about that. So like I don't agree, right? I think that taking the position that Biden should have been more optically signaling in certain particular ways, do you think that's a left-wing position or not? Or do you think it's neutral?
Optically signaling towards the left.
No, for his own policies, right? He's signaling to the base for his own policies, correct?
In a left way against specifically talking about being against the most right or like moderate people in the party.
No.
As it
no.
was
So,
to Manchin or Sinema. In
so-
certain things. I don't know
so,
the specifics of that whole
when we're talking
discussion.
about the strategy on how to achieve his own platform or how to appeal to voters generally, we're not talking about this. That's not from a lefty perspective. That's to help Biden with respect to his own agenda and signaling to his own people, right? That's not lefty.
to his
correct?
own people.
Right, to his base, to the people of the Democrat.
Rick.
Just a drink. A martini, shaken, not stirred.
For providing me a way to watch this content without having to look at their chats.
Rick Montana, Hutch's mod, Rick. Thank you so much for the $10, buddy. I appreciate that. Does the chat trigger you? It triggers me. I think this is why I try. This is why I try not to like glance too much at his chat. Okay. Fuck. But thank you so much. I appreciate the $10. I appreciate it. Yes. Yeah, Pisco's chat is like just full of Destiny anti-fans these days. You can see the chat if you zoom in. Don't zoom in. Why? It's just full of Destiny anti-fans and like lefties.
Democratic Party, that's not lefty. And we're talking about strategy, right? How to best
Don't do it.
make Biden
Well, certainly
succeed.
one
correct?
disagreement would be if that would be the outcome of what you're suggesting, is whether that would signal to the
Zip,
base.
come on. Okay.
I think I give actual insight, okay? I think I'm smart, okay? These people are a bunch of losers. I think I'm smarter than all of them. I'm kidding. Alright, that's enough. But like, dude, no. I don't think I've done this.
Okay,
Whether
well,
the zip-
I'm
or
going to make
whether
the
that
example
would
super simple,
more
Zip.
appeal.
I'm going to make the example super simple. Imagine that someone said, hey, Kamala, you got to go on Joe Rogan.
Like I feel like I notice patterns. I feel like I notice patterns and give original thoughts. Like for example, who else do you think is bringing up the point that Pisco is asking a bad faith question in the first place? And the fact that answering any answer to that question is like an indicator of how bad faith it is and how like whatever, right? It only came from me, right? Nobody else said it. Yeah.
Is that a lefty thing to suggest that?
No, that wouldn't be.
Okay, so when I say, yeah, hey, Joe Biden should have been more active and looked like he gave a shit more, is that lefty?
more people
Is that
said
left wing?
I don't think that was the whole.
No,
disagreement.
but just take that, right? Take that disagreement specifically. When we're
Sure,
like,
if what
that's
you're
not
just saying is all you
ideological.
would have wanted would be, hey, just be more vocal about your own positions.
yes.
then no, obviously that
okay,
would not
so
be.
can you
ideological.
name actually
But-
an ideological dispute between me and Hutch in those conversations? Can you name one?
No, I didn't watch them all. So
Okay, so the
wouldn't
answer is
know.
you can't. So
Certainly
in
that
what
is part of
sense?
the-
So I think I've deconstructed the Hassan hypothetical, where the viewers can see it themselves. I don't think that is an indication of like ideological capture. That's just a difference of opinion on how you value the First Amendment. And I would argue, right, that it's more liberal to say that you want a stronger First Amendment, right? That's more about individual liberty, or at least shoring up the restriction on the government action pertaining to free speech. So I don't think that is ideological in favor of leftyism. I think it's ideological perhaps in favor of liberal values, but I don't view that as ideological lefty. And the example of Hutch, we're talking about electoral
in that
strategy.
Case, you're actually getting to more. That's actually full pivot. What you're getting at there.
Right. So again, my question would be this: why do you think asking the question of who would you rather have for president be conducive to the question? Like, dude, it just seems. It's just, dude. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm just gonna say this. I actually think that Pisco is just looking for an easy dunk instead of a good faith like discussion, right? That's
What's the
what I
pivot?
get.
Wait, what's the pivot?
More,
He's looking for an easy
more
dunk.
what I
get it.
really wanted to discuss
I
But what's
was
the? Are you saying that I'm pivoting away from something?
Everyone can see it.
no, pivoting away from this particular train of conversation was more what I initially kind of came on to
Okay.
talk about was the
But-
specific
But you agree
Destiny Hassan v.
that
Trump
there's
thing.
there's no indication so far that I'm like giving more charity to left wing ideas or lefties, right? Or do you think that you still believe that I am giving more charity?
Well,
to...
maybe. So let's
Okay,
get to that.
sure.
So, like you say that you're like trying to defend liberal values and that kind of thing. So, I think when I came on last time,
How are you defending liberal values if you're willing to align with people who, number one, doesn't want to work with you, and number two, they are people who don't even believe in liberal values. They don't even believe in voting. At least right-leaning people believe in voting to some degree.
a few days
little
ago,
bit.
when was it? Was that Friday or Thursday? I don't remember.
They'll probably do elections on that, though.
Whenever after the conversation with Connor,
A lot more than lefties, sure.
I sort of came on and I talked about how the disconnect is because the Kirk versus Hassan and the Trump versus
Also, again,
Hassan
thank you for the 10.
questions are like what's like a term for it, but it's like a
Hypotheticals?
No, not hypothetical. There's like a specific term for like the kind of question that is. I think it's a bad question because it's not getting at the thing that you want it to get at because, the point like
Ooh.
Trump versus Hassan or Kirk versus Hassan, they're both illiberal people. So what you're really getting at is, okay, are you more on the left or are you more on the right? So I mean, Destiny eventually, but by the end, he did admit that he would vote for Hassan.
He's
because,
challenging the question.
For whatever it is, whatever. But
Not
yeah.
exactly.
So we agree on
think.
that. So you don't think that Destiny is being unhinged and charitable to lefties when he says he would prefer Hassan in a voting system with constraints, right? Or like, sorry, in a outcome when there were constraints, right? You don't think that he is being too charitable to lefties?
It gets past the thing that the question is trying to ask.
The fact that we agree,
for the original reason the question was asked, was because...
but okay, on the specific question, you agree. If Destiny and I have the same answer, which is, given a presidential system with constraints, we would both vote for Hassan over Trump, then you can't say that the specific answer to that hypothetical distinguishes us with respect to who's more charitable left wing, correct? On that specific point, correct?
No, on the final answer to the question, no.
Okay.
There clearly is a disagreement.
All right.
Or do you disagree that there's a disagreement?
I think that there was, and I think that he changed it. So now I don't know. I actually don't know what the disagreement is at this point. Maybe it's, would you pick Hassan in a system without constraints versus Trump in a system without constraints? Maybe there's a disagreement there, but I never asked that question. And to me, like, that's not the question I asked. It's not. I don't think that we're arguing that. Though I would prefer Hassan in that, just to be clear.
Well, okay. So if I were to guess what the disagreement would be, the disagreement would be why you would pick Hassan over Trump in that hypothetical. So what I think, the whole reason that argument happened is because I think the question is a bad question, because both Hassan and Trump, or Hassan and Kirk,
Finally. Okay, we'll see. We'll see if he gets down to the point that I actually want someone to get down. Okay, all right.
because both were asked during the
Okay,
Connor
we'll
stream.
see.
They're both illiberal, and so for a lot of people, just that in and of itself is enough to be a disqualifier to vote for either one or to support either one in any case, right? So to even ask the question is to get to an irrelevant part, which is like, okay, so that's why you and Connor disagreed because, or at least on the Kirk versus Han, because obviously Connor's going to say Kirk because if you're completely ignoring the illiberal part, and obviously he's going to say Kirk because Kirk is on the right and he's on the right.
You're basically just saying that the question's not interesting.
He's on the left.
You're basically saying the question's not interesting.
No, it's not that the question is not interesting. It is an interesting question in a vacuum, but like it doesn't help move the conversation forward. Oh my God, Pisco, you're such a bad faith freak. You are a freak. Okay, you're a bad faith freak. God, look at you. Dude, your fucking face looks like a fucking balloon. Okay, oh my God, it's like someone fucking inflated you with a like by plugging up a fucking tube up your asshole, dude.
Right?
Sort of.
You're like, who cares about the question?
It's not a useful question. It's not a useful question. It's not a useful question. It's just, dude, this is so stupid.
Question, but it is an interesting question.
The reason I brought it up is because there was a moment in our discussion on Live and Learn previously where Josiah takes it a given, like obviously the Vanguard are a more proximate ally.
Bro. Dude,
than
I
Rob
can't
Noor,
with
for
I
example.
don't
And
want to
so
watch this anymore. It
people
was
who I view as
horrible.
more proximate allies, I'm going to be more inclined to interact with them more and invite them to shows more. People who are more
Well, so
proximate
on that
allies.
point,
And then
right?
Hutch did like a kind of I'm not sure. And then Josiah had his like mouth agape. And so that's why I brought it up with Connor, is because this whole question of like, wait, is MAGA
Well, so
closer to us
that's a
than
question, right?
Yeah, you know what? Fuck Hutch for being too honest.
Yeah.
So the way you put it there
Fuck
is
Hutch for
okay.
being too
Obviously, they
honest.
are
That's right.
the Vanguard is more of an ally than Rob Noor. That's getting at the same
Do you
question,
agree with
right?
that?
It's I'll say why I think that it's not just a obvious fucking of course the Vanguard, because then the question would be back to the Hassan versus Trump. If
I will say, yeah, I think like if it was my place to say whether or not I want to team up with the Vanguard in Hutch's place, yeah, I would think that, you would want to team up with the Vanguard. Like, I think I disagree with Hutch on that. I think that if they are willing to advocate voting for Kamala Harris, then fine. However, even if I team up with them, I think that the problem in this situation is stop smack talking to Democrats. The more you smack talk to Democrats, the more like you are making our chances of winning worse, especially if you smack talk to Democrats in public. Are you smack talking to Democrats in public? Are you doing that? So yeah, like the thing is that I think that is the more relevant question to ask, right? Fine, we can team up, but the thing is that you can't jeopardize our chances of winning by contributing towards an extremely toxic space that wants to see the Democrats lose at every single fucking turn that is coming from the left, right? Otherwise, you're just working for the fucking Republicans.
they're
At this
both
point.
illiberal people, and if that's enough of a disqualifier for you to even ally with yourself with them, then it's a meaningless statement to say one is more of an ally than the other, because neither.
Right. Smack talk Democrats. Right. So this is why I say the support for the Democrats can't just be, oh, you know what, we're gonna smack talk them all day, but I'm gonna tell you reluctantly to vote for Kamala Harris. No, it has to be an extremely positive, forceful endorsement. Okay, it has to be an enthusiastic endorsement. It has to be an you have to have motivation, power, strength, and inspiration and ideal and an ideal, in behind your fucking thing. Okay, you can't have anything else. You have to have force and passion behind what you're saying. Okay,
Of them should be allies
yeah.
to you.
Otherwise,
And
people
that's the
don't want to vote
question. That's
anyway.
kind of
Yeah.
that was kind of the whole, the Hassan versus Trump question is kind of in the same kind of context as the
Again, you're
are the
repeating that the
Vanguard a good
question is
ally
not. Yeah,
versus
yeah. So,
thing,
so you're
because
repeating the question. The point that like this is not interesting because what we want to get at are the prescriptions,
Oh my
right?
God, please
Should they be
go.
an ally in any respect? Should you be platforming them
Correct.
in any respect, regardless of
Yes.
the comparison? Like, what is the actual prescription on that? Like, we can.
yes, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that Trump is a greater enemy than Hassan.
Like, I mean, I would partner with them only because I would have more of a say in influencing maybe how they conduct themselves by bashing the Democrats, right? If that makes sense. The thing is that, yeah, like, I would ally with them only for the pragmatic sense of, like, maybe I can influence them to not bash the Democrats as much. Maybe I can try to convince them in private that maybe it's not, like, a good idea to do if you're trying to, like, win a fucking election, right? That is my reasoning. Obviously, I disagree with Hutch on this. I don't really align with Hutch on this one. Because I think that, yeah, sure, you don't want to team up with them, that's fine, but, we both agree that the left is an issue. We both agree that, they sabotage their chances of winning. But the thing is that I want to be able to fix that within other people, if possible, right? I don't know, it's just... But I get it. You only have so much bandwidth.
That
Okay,
doesn't matter,
Okay,
because either way they can both be your enemies.
That's just you saying that the question is stupid, right? That's not you actually
Yeah,
addressing the
which
question.
I said that last Friday.
Okay,
the
but
last time I was on.
what people are taking is that my answer to that question, which now I think Destiny agrees with, at least the way the question was intended.
Does he now?
I think he backed off of that point. Although it's interesting, right? He started banning people who disagreed with his initial point, which I guess now he agrees with. So very interesting.
I think Loner Box's crowd disagrees with Hutch, which is highly disappointing. Not Loner Box's crowd, but like I think Sulfur. So Sulfur is like a big orbiter of, not big or anything, but like just the orbiter of Loner Box. I think it's just particularly disappointing that, that crowd is anti-Hutch. Yeah, it's just Jesus, dude. You can't team up with people who don't want to see you win. It's so
Actually, what his
stupid.
point of view is, I think that
What?
he, I think the most likely scenario is he actually backed off
It's very
an
disappointing.
opinion because he realized how much flack he was getting, and he changed it, and then he
Well,
accused
because
me of
there's
doing that
different
same.
interpretations
No,
of the
no,
question.
come on.
You can say what your original was,
wait,
but
hang on a
it's
second.
entirely obviously clear.
But I'm gonna get from
It's
you
not-
though.
people interpret it different ways.
Hang on a second. So
All
I'm gonna get from you.
is-
My question: Hassan or Trump? Who you voting for? If you had to pick, do you think that question is clear?
I think the question itself stands as a question.
Do you think it's
But then you
clear?
can add all different. So I think it's a clear question in the sense that yes, the English words that are written
Sophia is a mod. No, I know she's a mod. I've known her for years at this point.
in
But
that
yeah, it's
question
just
mean a specific thing. However, people can inject different meaning into
disappointing,
it.
you know?
People can take different meaning from it, and it can
You
be
get
asked
me?
by different people to mean two
You get
different
me?
things, because
You get
that's
me?
the English language is not as simple as what the words are on the paper.
So do you think
Right.
that the best faith interpretation of that question is who would you vote for president in a system with constraints, the normal constraints on the president, or in a system without constraints? What do you think is the best interpretation of that question?
I don't know. It would depend on lots of things. The way you were asking it, I don't know.
So if I ask you right now, like, who would you vote for, Destiny or Trump in 2024? How would you
Well-
understand that question?
Well, I would ask follow-ups to understand what the world is that we're talking about.
Really? You wouldn't just be, oh, of course,
Yeah.
Destiny. You would be like, I don't understand that
Well,
question.
then the question would be, okay, how did Destiny become the candidate for the Democratic Party?
Oh my God.
Does that mean he has a?
So if I said Joe
does that mean he has
Biden-
popular
Joe-
support?
Joe
Because
Biden or Trump in
you
2024?
agree
You-
that just
wait,
asking
really?
who would you vote for does not mean who would you want to win or who would you, in your ideal world, be the president. Right?
I understand that technically who you would vote for isn't the same as asking who would
Okay,
you
so
prefer.
yes,
I understand that the technical meaning of the word who you would vote for is different than who would you want to win. It's technically different meaning, and but I think most people understand who you would vote for to be a substitute for who would you prefer to win. And I think that you agree with that. If I were to ask you who would you vote for, and you're like, oh, I'd vote for Trump. I think that the regular interpretation of that is you would prefer Trump to win, correct?
I think for most reasonable people, yes, but I think there are people out there, which I think you agree that there
Wait,
are
wait,
people
wait.
who
Can
vote
you
but
answer
don't
that
actually want that
question?
person to win or do
Wait.
protest votes or weird votes. Yes.
No, I get it.
But
But
I agree with the premise.
when I ask you someone like, who are you going to vote for? And they're like, oh, I'm going to vote for Trump. I think that most people understand it to be like, I would prefer Trump to win based on the vote. And if they mean something else, they'll clarify, right?
Well, well, because people vote for different reasons. So yes, I agree that you would assume that based if they said yes. But I think people
How do you
could
think
mean,
Steven
I'm just doing a
understood that?
protest vote, or I'm just doing this.
How
or-
do you think Steven understood that? Do you think that Steven understood that, like, who would you vote for? Who would you pick if you had to pick, right? Like, you think that he understood, oh, who would I vote for in a way that doesn't affect the outcome? You think that that's how he understood it? Or do you think he understood the question as who would your preference be to win?
I think yes, it can be understood as who is your preference for who would win. But then I think the next level after that is, okay, do you desire the world that they would actually create?
Yeah, but that's not what I asked, right? Like, so when someone
Correct.
and I don't think that's what Steven
All
understood,
getting
right?
caught up in it.
So that's not how
Because
Steven
it's
understood it. Because
connected
Sorry.
to the Hutch debate over
we'll get to
should
that,
you
but I
ally
just-
with
Heidi gave-
leftists.
We'll get
and
to
the
that, but I
whole
just wanna-
in general debate about should you ally with leftists, and it gets to a similar kind of, fact of the matter.
But we'll get to that. But I just want to ask you, how do you think Steven understood it? When Steven is saying, quote, we already survived 4 years of Trump, he's
Was that the first
referencing
thing he
the
said,
first.
or-
No, this is the last.
Well, he's calling you a hindsight Andy is what's going on, right? He's saying that because we have knowledge of what to expect from Trump, we can reasonably assert that now we know for sure that we can survive 4 years of Trump. However, the problem with Hassan is that he is also an extremist like Trump, but we don't know whether or not the United States is able to survive 4 years of Trump. Does that make sense to you guys? Are you guys able to parse out why Destiny, answered like Trump? The reason why he answered Trump is because he has prior knowledge of Trump because of the reality that we are living in, right? However, the problem is that we don't have prior knowledge of Hassan. We have no idea how Hassan would act, right? And Hassan is just as extreme as Trump, if not more extreme, because he's ideologically driven. Stephen Miller is ideologically driven, but he's not president. Yeah. Yeah.
That's part of how we understood
Destiny actually
the.
said Hassan. Yeah, but Destiny said Hassan based off of constraints or something. I forgot. I mean, he only said that probably because he thinks that maybe Hassan wouldn't get enough done. Maybe he thinks that Hassan will become more moderate once he becomes president. Who the fuck knows, okay? He only made an educated guess. Like, no one knows for sure, right? But either way, it doesn't matter what answer Destiny gives. It was a trap question. It was a trap question, and Pisco set it up in the first place to make like a bad faith like fucking discourse around it, right? I find this very funny and stupid because Pisco can just DM Destiny and ask what he was thinking, but he does a stupid guessing game. Well, technically anyone can do that, and honestly, I don't really blame content creators for wanting to drag out the content for their own sake. But I will say, I mean, at this point, if you're beefing with each other this much, you might as well just have a debate at this point, you know? I don't mind people trying to turn, you know, different stages of an argument into content. That is like the entire point of content creation. But like the thing is that, I mean, at this point, just have a debate.
Do you have a problem with me referencing the last thing in that tweet?
You know, this feels a lot like a slow burn lesbian romance, okay?
No, I don't think
Okay.
that's a problem. I think, I mean, I think if you want to ask how did Destiny understand the question, I think the best way to see that would be what was the initial response.
Wait, so you think that the best way to understand why should we take the first sentence to be more significant than the last?
Because the
sentence?
understanding could have changed over the course of the conversation.
No, this is the first response. It's the last sentence of the first response. Do you think that there's any reason we should like take the first sentence of the first response to be different in terms of interpretive weight?
I thought you were looking at the final response because it was a back and forth. So I thought you meant the last
this
response.
is the first response to my, and I'm going to bring it up just so that we're all seeing the same thing. I'm going to bring it up on stream.
Hello, Tim. Do you ever share in Discord? Do you ever share your screen?
No, I don't. Sorry.
That's I just have to look.
Yeah, I just have to look at. So this is the full tweet. The last sentence of this tweet. I don't think that we should like. I don't have a hierarchy in terms of where the sentence appears that we should like discount it just because it's the last sentence. I think it's all in line with one interpretation. I don't think there's anything contradictory about this tweet. I think it's all, you know, internally consistent. So I don't think that there's any reason to have to give a preference based on where the sentence happens, that we'd have to resolve some ambiguity. I think this is all internally consistent. Okay. So the sentence says, quote, "We already survived 4 years of Trump. I'm not convinced we'd survive 4 years in a Hassan style regime." Wouldn't you agree that based on these words, he's referencing with his 4 years of Trump, the first term?
I like how Icona Boy's like excuse for not debating Destiny is that, oh, but I would have to set it up and everything. Listen, just be honest like me, okay? You're afraid of debates, okay? And scheduling makes you anxious, okay? It does for me. I have anxiety issues that I refuse to conquer, okay?
Term of Trump under which Trump was operating within constraints, correct?
That being said, I think that once I launch into like a fucking debate mode and it's in the moment and I feel the flow of the conversation, I think I do reasonably well, right? Like I have debated before, yeah.
Sure.
Okay, so wouldn't you say, therefore, that your interpretation, the best faith interpretation of Stephen's interpretation is that he was following along and understanding my question to be asking who you would pick with respect to a presidency with constraints, not without, correct?
Sure.
Okay, so but how DGG is painting me, by the way, this is community, which in many respects I've defended. I've defended DGG before in terms of their willingness sometimes to stand on liberal principles and make that distinction between full.
What's the last debate you were proud of? The fat guy during, it was my last debate with Wintermute. It was funny. I think for me, it's less about like, okay, it is also about winning a debate, but it's also like making good content. Like, fuck. It has to be funny, okay? The funnier the debate, the better.
Tankyism and to fight the good fight. I mean, there's a reason. But for DGG,
that's my requirement, okay?
To take me as muddy in the waters and trying to like ask a question that's unclear or to try to change what the question is, I think it's clear, and I think.
I mean, again, like you'll give them cookies, they want milk. If you give them milk, they want cookies. If you give them milk and cookies, they want more milk and cookies. Okay. Yeah.
I want your assessment on this. You tell me if you disagree. That I asked the question, and Stephen interpreted it in a way that it was with constraints, not without. Correct?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm glad that we agree on that. And so, what do you think about this whole Stephen saying, you know, you change the question?
All right, hold on. We're gonna see. We're gonna do 10 polls on Yuzuha. Okay, ready? We're gonna do 10 polls. Let's go.
You morphed the question.
Well, what happened after that? What was the tweet after this?
So
one?
after that, he didn't actually answer this, right? He
Wait. Let me see if I can copy one of my screens.
didn't answer it, right? Because you would agree he didn't answer it. Fair? So I
Sure.
asked who he'd vote for, and here he's not saying who he'd vote for. He just says Trump at least has some this, right? I could say that about anybody, right? Hassan at least has this, Trump
Sure.
at least has that. So none of that's answering the question. So I asked him the question again, as I do. So would you vote for Trump over Hassan? And he says, yes, he would vote for Trump over Hassan. At
Well,
no
he said
point
he supported the guy at Gen 6
Oh,
versus October 7th, and then what was after that?
over who the person who supported October 7th. I'm not going to get in. That's his interpretation that Hassan is in favor of October 7th. I haven't seen evidence that he supported October 7th. Maybe he did. I'm not saying he didn't. I'm just saying I haven't seen. So I just want to be clear. I haven't seen evidence of that, but I understand Stephen to be
What's her
referring
build? How
to
do you build
Hassan
her
in the
again?
second part and referring to Trump in the first part, correct?
Is she an attacker?
You agree with
Yep.
that? So that's him saying I would support Trump over Hassan. Fair?
Yep.
Okay. So that then I say, okay, we have an honest disagreement. I would vote for Hassan over Trump.
Okay.
I see Trump and MAGA as a greater enemy than Hassan Piker. That's all consistent. None of that is inconsistent. None of that is saying ideal
I think
society,
that's been your stated
unideal.
position
Okay.
always on
Yep.
this, yeah.
Perfect. So there's no disagreement there. He said that's because you don't think tankers are that bad. Then I'm responding directly, not to the question. Like we've already resolved the question. In my mind, we've resolved the question. I'm not going back to the question. Like there's nothing about this that is implying that I'm trying to revisit the question. I'm just addressing his specific point that he says that I don't think that tankies are that bad, right? Sorry, this is super chat. I just want to read real quick. Are they both in the ballot? Real
Yeah,
election
so,
or satire?
so
Is
that's
it
getting to part of it, which is that what Destiny's saying is that he doesn't think that you think authoritarians on the left are as bad as authoritarians on the right.
Yeah, it's a separate point, right? This is a point now. We're not going
Yeah.
back to the question. So the question is already asked.